Welcome to our video series, Leadership Perspectives, and we are delighted to have with us today Julian Sawyer, the CEO at Bitstamp, the world's longest standing crypto exchange. Julian, welcome, and thank you very much for taking the time to be with us today.
Pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
So the pace of change in the digital assets and I guess broader DeFi space has been literally phenomenal, and it doesn't seem to be showing any sign of slowing down. That has had some pretty significant impacts in our experience on the talent and the demands on the talent. It would be really interesting to hear your perspective on that, Julian. How would you describe the changing demands on the leadership teams of businesses in the sector?
Well, I think we're in this perfect storm. We've now got consumers asking about crypto and, Bitcoin in particular, but crypto in general. We've got the regulators also more and more engaged in this space, and then we've got the institutions playing. And so what we've got is a new industry. Bitstamp is the oldest exchange, and we've got our 10th birthday this year. So it is a very, very new industry, and this is colliding this is colliding, I guess, is the question, with traditional financial services. And so what that does mean is that we need, the crypto industry, we need to have enough people with banking, financial services experience, risk, compliance, controls, together with all the innovation that comes from people who live their life in the world of crypto. And that becomes really exciting. And this is a very similar debate to what we had with fintech 5 years ago, which is, fintech, or the best fintech are those that have got people with the right fin, i.e. the risk and control and compliance, etc., with enough view about product and technology and delivery, and getting that combination together. So for me, I think there's an evolution in the digital asset industries, which is moving towards financial services people, recruiting out of the more established players within financial services and merging those two together. And that's where I think it is super exciting. And I think, if you look at the major hires that anybody in digital assets have come from in the last 6 or 12 months, it has predominantly been out of the traditional financial services industry.
And just building on that a little bit, you touched on a few areas and a few skills that are becoming increasingly important. If you kind of cast your mind forward 12 months, what skills do you think will be particularly critical for businesses in this space to be successful? Where do you think organizations in this space can find competitive advantage?
I think it's probably 3 parts. First, without a doubt, it is compliance and regulatory management. Reputational risk is absolutely critical in this. Engagement with the regulators, plus also the other stakeholders within the industry. And I think that is super, super important and absolutely critical. The other 2 parts are a real focus on product. And I think this is when we start moving from consumers who are the innovators and early adopters to where we're going to the mass market. And there's various, books and articles about crossing the chasm and all those other things. At the end of the day, what we've got to make sure is our products are easy to understand. As an industry, we have probably communicated far more to the geeks within the crypto world. We've been talking about mining and hash rates and all those other things, and consumers do not care. And what we need to do is be able to communicate to how they want to understand this product and this product suite. So I think that is super important, is to have really strong product professionals understanding what the customer experience is. And then finally, it's about growth. You mentioned right at the beginning that the digital asset crypto world has gone through phenomenal growth over the last few weeks and months, and we all believe it will continue to do so. What we want to make sure is that we're doing good growth. We're bringing on profitable customers. We're bringing on the right type of customers. We are having engaged customers, and therefore it's not growth at any cost. It is controlled and managed high growth. And I think we can use a lot of experience and knowledge that some people who've come from other high growth industries, not only financial services, but other high growth industries, and understand what growth looks like and how do we manage that.
And of all the areas that you've just touched on, in your experience, what are the skills that are the hardest to find in the sector and the hardest to attract to the sector?
I think what is hard to attract to the sector is changing possibly on a weekly basis at the moment. Okay, I think, you know, a year ago or 2 years ago, if you said you were going to move into the crypto industry, people would look at you with, just with confusion. I think now a lot of people look at you and go, nice move. That's really, really exciting. That's the place to be. And certainly with my recent appointment, a lot of people have been incredibly supportive and going, that's a really, really strong move. And I think that is giving credibility, and that means more people will move to crypto. But I don't see these as you're either in crypto or you're in financial services. I'm seeing this as a blending. This is the point I was making earlier, which is these two industry sectors are coming together. We are hiring the same people. We are having the same challenges in terms of customer experience and delivery and execution and risk and compliance, etc. And it's the same skill sets as a different product. Now that becomes super important, I think, in attracting and retaining great talent. Likewise, I can see that the traditional financial services are going to be looking at the crypto world and going, some really good talent there. They haven't started doing that yet, but it won't be long until they reverse around that.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess that's another parallel on what we've seen from the challenger banking and fintech space.
Absolutely, yeah,
for sure. How much of a difference do you see in these pressures and in these dynamics between the institutional and retail side of the crypto and digital asset space?
They're two very different markets. They are two very different ways of communicating. And the analogy I just always have in my head is, who's wearing the t-shirts and who's wearing the shirt and tie. And I think that's really the difference. Is it's a different type of communication, it's a different type of product, it's a different type of customer experience, and the journey of even just simple onboarding, etc., is different. And what we need to make sure is that we are communicating to our institutional prospects and customers in one way, and to our retail in a different language, however, all still underpinning our fundamentals of our business. So I think it is part of the maturity as we, as an industry, grow up and look at how we communicate to different market segments. This is not unusual. This has been done by many, many companies, both in financial services and outside, which is how do I communicate to different people with a very, very similar product? And I think that becomes really interesting, going back to your previous question about skill sets, but having growth experts and product people who are thinking differently. What does an institutional investor want? What is the time frame that they will make decisions on? What are the critical success factors that they're looking for? Will be different than what they are from a consumer.
Yeah, interesting. And how have these changes impacted Bitstamp, out of interest, and sort of what changes have you made, or what changes can you share that you are making to the business in the near future?
Well, I've only just started, so that's probably a correct question for a few months' time. But I think what is interesting is that me coming in is sort of the next generation of the leadership part of the business. So our founder CEO has moved into a non-exec position. We have private equity backing, and now what we're looking at is that next generation of leadership. And I think we touched on fintechs a couple of times today, and I think we can see more and more of that, where the founder, the CEO, is moving on to do different things, and the next generation is coming on board. For me, it reflects back to what we just talked about. We need to be absolutely credible in the financial services, in the institutional space, and therefore what do we need to do? And we need to be highly engaged in the customer experience for the consumer. As the longest exchange in the world, we've got a lot of background. We've got to absolutely look and exploit our strengths. But I can see that continual merging of financial services and crypto. So it actually is just part of the overall financial services world, not something that is kept on the side by everybody.
Yeah, and to that point, I guess, building on it slightly, but also we've just touched a lot on today the requirement to bring talent from outside of the sector and sort of the benefit of broadening the talent pool. In your view, what's the best way to attract non-native talent to this space, and how's that changing?
Well, I think probably the biggest change in the last 12 months, obviously, has been COVID. I think what that has meant is that obviously we've all been working at home. Will we go back? And I think flexible working, or what I call the office of the future, is absolutely critical for retaining talent, but also attracting talent. And we have seen multiple companies that have made announcements of never have to come into the office or come back this time, or you can work anywhere in the world, etc. And that is going to be hugely, hugely important. It's also important to look after people's well-being or mental health and supporting their families, etc. And I think while we all are looking forward to the end of COVID and a relaxation of some of the rules, what will not go back to what it was is our ways of working. And I think that is what we need to look at. So that is super important. I think our reputation and our brand is super important. So people are looking for moving to different companies, but on the same trajectory, on the same brand, the same reputation, etc. And that becomes absolutely critical in being able to have the conversations. And then I think ultimately it's about the vision. You know, where is the business going? What is the vision? And have we got an amazing team that is going and delivering against that vision? These all things come together. But if you look at what's happening over the last, 3 or 4 years, and I'll put fintech and crypto in the same space for a moment. A year ago, no one was talking about profit. It was all about growth. And I think there have been a number of fintechs that have grown with bad growth, and there's a number of them who've done some very good growth. And I touched on that earlier, and that's important to understand. What growth are you doing? Have you then got a sustainable business? Have you got something which is going to be here in 5 and 10 years' time? And then you've got the P word. Now, crypto is very different. It's a very profitable industry to operate in. So that is less of an issue that you've had in the fintech, but you've still got that growth, you've still got that sustainability, and you've got to wrap that up with the brand. And then this curveball of COVID coming in, which is, so what does the office of the future look like? And so for us, as we look through our global expansion, in the United States and Singapore, etc., it is what does that business look like when it looks fundamentally different than it did a year ago? Those will be differentiating factors. And I think if you were looking to move jobs and your future employer says, well, we're expecting you to be in the office from Monday at 9 o'clock till Friday at 5 o'clock, you would go, that's different, but I don't want to go back to that commuting challenge every day, etc. And that, I think, is where there's a real onus on us all as leaders to find the right opportunity. And some of the things that I found when speaking to some of my colleagues is that, while probably most of us have accepted working at home as a way of life, it has been very, very difficult. It's been incredibly challenging for some people from a mental health perspective. They may not have the right physical space in their home or apartment or whatever. And we need to find a way that supports those people who want to have much more human interaction, as well as those people who are just very happy to sit at home and do their work or sit on Zoom the whole time. And I think that is really important, is that flexible, dynamic working environment, which I think will be really important.
Well, thank you very much for spending some time sharing your point of view with us today. And I look forward to catching up with you again at some point soon.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Appreciate the time today.